You are watching Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Stone Shields. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here this afternoon. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about some changes that the Bengals need to make as they kind of vault their way through the second part of their season post-bye. Of course, Cincinnati not playing this weekend. They are off and sitting at 4-7. Several changes that need to be made throughout the rest of these games if they hope to even stick around and give themselves a chance in the final weeks of the season to potentially make a playoff push. So that's going to be coming up here on today's show. We're going to be diving in to all of those suggested changes here from me. But first, I want to remind you guys to hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already. We are trying to get 1,000 subscribers here in the month of November. Really did a phenomenal job during our watch party against the Chargers. We're able to get over 500 subscribers during that live stream, so that was exciting. Trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark here in November. Got plenty of time to do it and only need 114 subscribers. Would be really awesome to cut that number in half after this video. So help us out. Help yourself out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. All right, let's get into some of these bye-week changes. Look, number one thing, Cincinnati has to find a way to take some off of the plate of Joe Burrow. Now, of course, if you watch the program, you know that I tend to defend Zac Taylor, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for the way the offense has been playing. I think when you're judging a head coach, it's very important to judge him based on his side of the ball. If you're in a situation where you don't know exactly what to do with him, and certainly Cincinnati offensively has been in a really good spot, but it looks a lot harder for Cincinnati on offense than it does for a lot of other teams in the National Football League. And they're really reliant on Joe Burrow being absolutely fantastic and getting them out of tough situations in order for their offense to run. Got to find ways to make things a little bit easier on Joe Burrow. Taking a look at that QB hits number, 43 times he has been hit. That is absolutely ridiculous. That is the second most in the NFL. Only Daniel Jones at that 44 hit mark has been hit more times than Joe Burrow. So got to find ways to make things a little bit easier for this offense, make it a little more smooth, perhaps get the play call in a little bit sooner. Seems like a lot of times the Bengals are rushing at the last minute at the line of scrimmage in order to make that happen. But we saw what the Chargers did with Justin Herbert. How many times was Herbert under center and were they running some play action stuff? We never see that from Cincinnati, and that really opened up some things for Justin Herbert, particularly in that first half. Now, I understand that's not really the Joe Burrow offense, the Zac Taylor offense, right? But I think getting Joe Burrow under center a little bit more, creating some more play action opportunities, are going to limit those hits on Joe Burrow, which is really critical in order to save him for the rest of the season and for his career when you're kind of looking at the long-term side of things as well. 2 games against Pittsburgh, probably going to get drilled a bunch in those games. That's just kind of the nature of playing in the AFC North, but got to find ways to make things a little bit easier on Joe Burrow, not put him in such bad situations where you need him to be Superman and take a ton of punishment. Speaking of that punishment, are you worried about the punishment Joe Burrow has taken here in 2024? Hasn't missed any time, hasn't missed any snaps, but he has gotten rocked a lot this year. Let us know in the comment section of today's video. This is the pinned comment of today's video, by the way, so if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comment section and let us know what you think. Second bye-week change here. Look, man, you got to play Geno Stone less. This guy's not good. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. He had a fantastic year last year in Baltimore, and then you kind of fell for it, right? Which I can't blame you in the moment. I mean, he played particularly great against Cincinnati when he was a member of Baltimore. Again, he had that injury he suffered during that game against Cleveland several weeks ago that the Bengals, of course, won. Maybe he's still really banged up, hasn't showed up really on the injury report much, but he just looks slow out there, and he's late getting help. And he gets beat over the top all the time as well. Those coverage stats there that you just saw, he really struggles when they go after him in coverage. Hasn't really done a nice job of stepping up in that capacity. Got to find a way to get somebody else in there and taking some of these snaps from Geno Stone. Because we've seen Von Bell lose some playing time, and rightfully so. He hasn't played at a high level either. But I'm looking for Geno Stone to have some time off the field as well. Perhaps guys like Tyson Anderson. It's a name that I floated around a lot. He has been absolutely phenomenal for you as far as the special teams go, and it's a guy that can play safety. We haven't really seen it. Might be a guy you want to just insert in your lineup and see what you have in him, because your safety play has been so bad this year with Von Bell and Geno Stone. More snaps for Jordan Battle, of course, going forward as well. Dejon Anthony showed some promise in the preseason. Maybe you sprinkle him out into the lineup as well, but I want to see less of Geno Stone. We've had a large sample size at this point in the season, and he has not lived up to those expectations. By the way, he was a 7th-round pick, so it's not like this was a highly drafted guy, but you went out and paid him in free agency, and it very clearly looks to be a whiff at this point here late in November. We'll continue with our bye week changes here in a moment, but first, want to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. This is kind of what we threw together here at Chat Sports with our Prize Pick slate for this weekend. Going with the more than for Christian McCaffrey rushing yards. Of course, anytime he's out there on the football field, he has really an ability to go out there and make big-time things happen, as well as the less than in Christian Watson receiving yards, less than 43.5. This is not the flex play, by the way. That would be 3 picks in that, but the flex play essentially means you can cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Next bye week change here. Look, I think it's time to mix up the field goal operation in some capacity, right? Everybody's been frustrated with Evan McPherson's performance this season, as they should be. He has performed well below the standard that is expected from him, and it really is unfortunate considering the contract that he got this offseason, making him one of the highest paid kickers in the National Football League. So, because of that contract, I don't think you're really in a spot where you can, cut him, move on from him, let him go. I think you have to stick with him for at least a little bit, probably at least through the remainder of the 2024 season. Maybe you bring a guy in to challenge him a little bit from a competition standpoint. But look, I think the biggest thing here is you might need to make a change with the operation. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind there is the holder, who right now, of course, is Ryan Rico, undrafted free agent. By the way, is doing a tremendous job as your punter. But the holding, of course, he had the botched hold against Baltimore that lost you the game. Some of the other ones haven't looked completely clean. Maybe it's time to try someone else in at that position. Brad Robbins last year did a much better job holding the football. McPherson still kind of struggled a little bit in 2023 as well. By the way, I think Kevin Huber and his abilities as a holder really kind of was taken for granted. He was elite for McPherson in his rookie year, which I think is part of the reason why McPherson was so fantastic. Do you bring in another guy on your roster just to hold the football? I don't think many teams really do that, but it could be a possibility. Maybe you try a different player out there. Jake Browning, maybe backup quarterback's the guy that could potentially be a holder as well. But I think at some point you got to mix it up. I think Adam Midas snapping the ball is still fine. You've had success there, but got to switch up something with the operation. And unfortunately, given where you're at with McPherson and his contract, I don't think it's the kicker that you can really switch at this point. I think a guy like Ryan Rico might be a guy that could get subbed out of that holder spot. Maybe try someone else and see what happens, but got to mix up something in that operation because that really has cost you several games this season. Another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. Should the Bengals try a new holder? Let us know in the comment section. Type 1 for yes or 0 for no. I want to know what you guys think. Next bye week change here. More benching for poor performance. That's something I want to see continued throughout the rest of this season. The Bengals, of course, have benched Cam Taylor-Britt twice this season. We saw it in Carolina, and we saw it most recently last week against the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, when you take a look at the Bengals defense, they aren't in a spot where you go, oh, this guy's going to be here long-term. This guy's going to be here long-term. Trey Hendrickson's your only guy on defense. He's literally your only guy. As far as I'm concerned, everybody else on that defense is replaceable. You know I love Logan Wilson, but Logan Wilson hasn't played up to the standard this year for Cincinnati. Taking a look at some of his numbers in coverage, when they go after him, they complete passes. Giving up several touchdowns on the season as well. And another critical part of Logan Wilson's game that we have fell in love with over the past couple of years is his ability to make those interceptions and really show off that athleticism and those ball skills. No interceptions this year for Wilson, and only one PBU for him as well. He's a guy that really has to elevate that performance. He looks kind of slow out there on the football field. I don't know if he's banged up. He's popped up on the injury report from time to time. Does not look to be that fast guy that he once was, that you could really rely on. The guy that the Bengals, of course, paid hasn't proven to be that guy. So you might be looking to move him at that linebacker position. Sam Hubbard as well. Certainly not playing at the level you would like to. Rushing the passer. Look at those numbers there. I mean, 2 sacks. Only 3 tackles for a loss here. Just not ideal whatsoever. And kind of going back to the linebackers here in a moment, talking about guys that could potentially come in for Logan Wilson. Muma Jong-Meta, your undrafted free agent that played really well in the preseason. Maybe he finds a way to get into the lineup. Or else Akeem Davis-Gaither as well, who also really played at an elite level for Cincinnati in his snaps that he got against the Chargers. Myles Murphy has been absolutely dreadful for you. It's a guy you took in the first round, and those numbers right there, his literal job is to rush the passer, and he's got no sacks and only a singular tackle for a loss. That is unacceptable. He has been a complete whiff in 7 games that he has appeared in this season. He's a guy that you probably want to get out of there and find ways to get more guys in the lineup. So cycle through several players there. Bottom line is, if guys aren't playing up to the standard and are making mistakes, get them out of there and try someone else new. It's not like you have a ton of guys that are going to be sticking around for the future. Again, Trey Hendrickson is your only guy on defense that I am certain is going to be here for the long term, or certain that you want to be here for the long term. Like what the Anarumo did, taking CTB out. Going to have to continue to do this if guys aren't playing up to the standard. Lastly, before we get out of here, somebody's got to step up and be a leader on this team. When you look at teams across the NFL, it's very clear who some of the leaders are on those teams. Pittsburgh, for example, Watt is the unquestioned leader of that football team. Who's the unquestioned leader of the Cincinnati Bengals football team? Look, Joe Burrow isn't a guy that loves to, step up and, talk or whatever. He's had to do that a little bit more this year. And look, I don't want Joe Burrow to be forced into some guy that he isn't, but somebody really has to step up and do a good job in leading. And the problem is you only got about 3 guys that are playing good football, because you can't have a guy that's not playing well step up and kind of be your voice and kind of take the bull by the horns. It doesn't work like that. So it's really one of a handful of guys. Trey Hendrickson is a guy that I would like to see step up and be a leader. He, by the way, is not a captain on this football team, but he's your best player defensively, and he's leading the league in sacks. He could step up and have more of a voice in that locker room, and I think guys would really rally behind him because, again, he's playing at an elite level. Ted Karras, of course, is another guy that could be looked at. Your center as a guy that could potentially step up and be a leader. He's probably not having exactly the year that he envisioned, but he, by the way, is a captain. So somebody needs to step up in the locker room, lead by example, and also lead with their voice as well, because this season is not over quite yet. You lose to Pittsburgh, it probably is. But you need someone from a leadership standpoint to really step up and assert themselves as a leader on this football team. Throughout 11 games this season, I don't really know who that is, and that is a problem. Lastly, before we get out of here, make sure you guys follow me over on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at @StoneShields_. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my page, trying to get to 600 followers by the end of the month. Got a mountain to climb in order for that to happen. But help me out. Give me a follow over on Twitter at @StoneShields_.